keeping the momentum in the process stayed positive and productive.
Hitting that glass ceiling over and over and over again to the point.
Meritage was their M&A advisor. So we got pulled into the process and pretty quickly felt like there was a really strong fit, for.
We all exit our company eventually. The question is, will it be on your terms or someone else's? Strategy matters. Timing matters. The right partner changes everything. Brought to you by Meritage Partners. Here is your host, Brian Franco, author of The Inevitable Exit. This is the M&A Guy Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the M&A Guy Podcast. I'm Brian Franco, and today we have a great episode for you, a success story that we're going to share and you're going to learn a lot about. This title is Roll-Ups, Partnerships, and Scale, How to Build Value in a Fragmented Industry. Joining me today from Allied Roofing Partners is Azad Naim. Azad, thank you for being on.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. We have had the opportunity, our firms, that is, to work together on a transaction that we closed earlier this year. Great win for everyone. The clients are happy. You guys have been happy. Love to get some updates on that too, but I know you guys continue to grow and scale within Allied Roofing Partners platform, and would love to dive in. So let me sprinkle you with some questions, and we'll go from there.
Awesome, let's do it.
Okay, so I obviously know who Allied Roofing Partners is, but can you briefly tell us about the platform, your role in the partnership, and what you guys are looking for in terms of acquisitions?
Yeah, absolutely. So at a high level, Allied Roofing Partners is a residential roofing and exteriors group. We're building a network of independent market-leading contractors across the US. And we really achieved that through a very partnership-driven model. We're not coming in to completely take over businesses, although we have acquired companies in the past. Instead, we really look to partner with great roofing operators who have already built something meaningful and help them scale their businesses even further by providing capital, resources, and strategic support. My role is leading a lot of those partnership and acquisition conversations. And honestly, a big part of it isn't transactional at all. It's just getting to know owners early, sometimes months, even years in advance, and helping them think through what the next chapter of their business could look like. A lot of these companies are family-built companies, and so there's a real personal element to it, and we really try to approach these conversations that way.
Yeah. Our work together is transactional, but to your point, it leads with relationship, it leads with trust. And without that, you really can hinder the business growth. And, this is a service business. So typically the companies that, and especially, Schmidt Roofing that we transacted on earlier this year, these companies have been family run and operated for years, if not decades. And they have favor in their communities. They build beautiful businesses, but geographically they have their limitations, which is not a bad thing, but it's something that, they have built their businesses to. And what we find, having capital partners and strategic partners like yourself help those owners, that have been hitting that glass ceiling over and over and over again to the point where it causes heartache and brain damage, to be honest, because their intentions are to grow as much as they possibly can. But you and I also both know that, privately held companies, they are able to grow as fast as their cash flow delivers. Net income and cash flow, we could agree, are two different things. And so having the influx of capital, but not just the capital, but the strategy on how to deploy that capital, where to deploy that capital, so that the platform is safe, but also those partners that you're bringing on have a bigger, brighter opportunity, especially when it comes to that second and or third bite of the apple, as we say. And I think it's a powerful partnership that we put together with you and our client, and excited to see where this goes. I know you're only a couple months in, but I imagine you're still going through integration and all of that. How's everything going for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about Schmidt with that, which I do think you are.
Yes.
Really a wonderful story there. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it more throughout this conversation, but they've really built a fantastic reputation for themselves. They have a fantastic foundation already set. And with our help, we have a lot of together a lot of opportunity for the future. So it's a transaction that, and partnership, I should say, that we're very, very excited about.
Me too. And you touch on this a bit, but I want to dive a little further. What does Allied typically look for when evaluating a target, specifically a roofing company, for acquisition into your platform? What do you typically look for?
Yeah, it's a great question. We really look at a few different dynamics. I mean, first, just the business itself, of course, we want to make sure that it's reached a level of scale and real infrastructure. You know, they have to have a strong team, systems, processes, something that shows that the company is built to last. Then we'll look at the mix. I mean, we're in the roofing industry. We want to take a look at if they're doing residential versus commercial work, retail versus insurance work. There's no perfect formula. And of course, it depends on what market you're in. But we do like businesses that have some level of predictability. But honestly, the biggest factor is the people. Culture and vision alignment matter just as much as the financials do for us. And the best partnerships are with owners who still want to grow, who see the partnership not really as an exit, but a way to do something bigger together.
Yeah, agreed. So would you say that, those target companies or potential companies that you're looking to acquire, are they less attractive to you if the owner's looking to completely exit? Or you think there's special circumstances where you guys consider those?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we've done full acquisitions in the past. It's not something that we shy away from. And of course, all models are different. All businesses are different. We really love the model of partnership, really partnering together to go do something special together over the course of the next few years and experience that second bite at the apple that you had mentioned before.
Correct. So you and I both know the answer here, but for those tuned in and listening in, Meritage Partners, we've been transacting in a variety of industries, home services, all the way back since 2008. At that time, we saw a lot of roll-ups in the water and fire damage restoration space. And now today you have about a half a dozen meaningful national players that have consolidated the industry and really have delivered to homeowners and insurance companies alike, commercial property owners alike. But how did Schmidt Roofing, that opportunity, again, you and I both know the answer, but I want everyone to know the story, but how did that first come on to your radar screen?
Schmidt Roofing, I mean, it was really, it was one of those situations where everything just kind of aligned at the right time. We have existing relationships with you, Meritage, and with the Schmidt brothers, and you were their advisors. Meritage was their M&A advisor. So we got pulled into the process and pretty quickly felt like there was a really strong fit. For us, really, the turning point in any relationship is getting time together in person. So, as you know, a few of us from the Allied team, we flew out to Minnesota. We spent some time with the whole team, not just the four brothers and their, the four brother partners, their significant others, their families, really everyone that is involved in the business. And the goal there wasn't just to review the business. It was to get to know each other, make sure there was real comfort and alignment, both personally and professionally. We spent time understanding how they operate day to day, aligning on vision, as I mentioned, talking through growth plans, and we really dug into the opportunities and challenges in their specific market. And again, pretty quickly, it became very clear to everybody involved. They had a strong culture, great reputation, real ambition to grow. And as I mentioned, that's really what we're looking for. And that combination, again, it's exactly what we look for in a partner.
That's great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there has to be alignment and thesis and vision. Then you have to have this cultural alignment of the people. But when you bring those two together, this is where you see that 1 + 1 = 3 or greater equation, because the possibilities and the opportunities are outstanding when you start to break those down. And that's what we saw naturally come together in this transaction. And we're excited about that. And earlier you stated a few things that we constantly teach and preach behind, documented processes and procedures, having a solid team, which is that org chart, top tier leadership, second tier of leadership, so on and so forth. But there's always something that it's interesting to watch different business owners on how they build their companies. And, although this is not a like a software company where there's monthly reoccurring revenue or annual reoccurring revenue, but they have created a machine in their systems and in their geography that really allowed you guys to see the predictable nature of the revenue in that company. And this is constantly what we're speaking to potential clients and those that are considering an exit, because without those elements, it's difficult to not just assign a value, but also to balance out in the underwriting process or due diligence process is the risk. And the risk typically shows up in, yes, financials, yes, misalignment in thesis or strategy, but we found that alignment really helped propel this particular transaction for everyone.
Yeah.
And so, which is very cool to see. But when you think about, those that are listening to you, some might know you, some might be hearing you for the first time. But from your perspective, what makes advisors and investment bankers, M&A advisors like Meritage, what makes that helpful for you and your team when pursuing an opportunity?
Yeah. So from a buyer's perspective, if that's what you're asking me, from a buyer's
Yes.
perspective, a great advisor really brings structure and clarity to what can otherwise be a pretty complex process. I mean, these are pretty big transactions. They're deeply personal transactions. There are a lot of moving pieces in any NA transaction. So having an advisor who can keep things organized and keep everyone aligned is incredibly valuable. And of course, communication. Communication is huge. The best advisors keep things moving forward, making sure questions are getting answered quickly, keeping the momentum in the process stay positive and productive. Again, we recognize that these are incredibly big, sometimes emotional decisions. And the last thing we want to do, and really what we're trying to avoid, is any type of stagnancy in the process.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, we're really, what advisors are really doing are minimizing surprises, setting clear expectations around timing, information, what the
Yeah.
process is actually going to look like early on. So both sides can spend less time on any type of friction and more time focusing on building a really strong partnership, because really that's what we're excited to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in the case with the Schmidt brothers, we met them months, almost a half a year ahead of going to market. And we really spent a lot of time educating them and helping them understand what they should expect as they approach the market from not only preparation standpoint, marketing standpoint, but most importantly, due diligence and integration, because there's a lot that occurs from the definitive purchase agreements, the networking capital. Some clients, most clients coming into this process, they say, well, what's networking capital? And once they discover what it is, they say, well, why would I give up networking capital? And it's like, well, wait, we help them understand that the business is being sold in its continuous form. And part of that continuity is the networking capital as an example, but also helping them understand that before that is even discussed helps us to avoid fatigue, avoid burnout, and avoid distraction. Because ultimately, these are basic elements of a transaction, as you and I both know.
Right.
And if clients cannot show up, our clients can't show up at least understanding where we're headed, it will be a surprise to them. And surprises are typically what will either kill a deal or cause it to derail for a longer period than any of us want. And so I'm glad to hear you say that, because we're very mindful of that. We're very thoughtful with that approach. And here is a great case study of how that really came to fruition for everyone involved. So I'm gonna hit you with another question. So in this experience, we worked together, with Meritage Partners, with Allied Roofing Partners. What was that experience like for your team and during and throughout this entire transaction process?
Yeah, I'd say our experience with Meritage was very strong, and professionalism to the process, which, as you know, is especially important in a transaction like this, where there are a lot of family members involved and a lot of different moving parts. Meritage has really deep experience in the roofing space specifically. So they understood the nuances of the business in a way that was very helpful for both sides, both for Schmidt Roofing and us at Allied Roofing Partners. And I think what stood out the most is just how well they manage the communication and expectations throughout the whole process. I mean, there was a lot of due diligence, due diligence that Meritage did before introducing Schmidt to us. That made things more efficient. It allowed everybody to stay focused on exactly what mattered. So really, Meritage checked all the boxes that you'd hope for in a good advisor. So again, we're super excited about the relationship that we have with you all at Meritage, because we now have opportunities to work with awesome partners like Schmidt Roofing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we say the same thing about you guys. You guys were very thoughtful in your approach. The work that we do is very logical and requires a logical mind, but also, the intangibles of the emotions that are involved. In this case, there was 4 different partners, 4 different sets of expectations. And those expectations, are typically manageable, but you also have to consider, family and spouses and everything that goes into it, because 4 partners is really 8 partners when you consider spouses, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding, where are we going? And you guys were very thoughtful, and I will use the word gentle, because you were very empathetic to where they were sitting and what they were thinking and what they were feeling, and you addressed those with them. And if you had not done that, we would have I believe, a very different outcome here. So collectively, it was a fruitful experience working with you guys, and I know we're sharing and exploring other opportunities with you. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, Brian, you're making me blush. We're very excited about it. Really, we like to think that we're high integrity people. We also, that's something that we look for in potential partners. So really, our main objective is to make good on the promises that we make early on in these conversations. And when that happens, I mean, it just is a wonderful story, like it was with Schmidt Roofing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Great to hear that. What excites you most about Schmidt Roofing joining your platform at Allied?
Yeah, I mean, what was particularly exciting about the idea of partnering with Schmidt was the combination of the foundation that was already built and then the opportunity ahead. We all felt that there was a lot of runway ahead of us. They've already had a great team, strong presence in the market, a strong reputation. They were building momentum already. And when you're able to add the right partner to that mix, you really help empower them to unlock new opportunities to accelerate growth. That could mean new markets, better systems, or really just giving them additional resources in order to scale the business. And of course, there's always the platform side of a network of other successful roofing companies or roofing contractors. We have other partners. And so when we're all partnered together, you're able to share ideas and best practices across partner companies. And that's really where things really start to compound.
It is. There is a compounding effect, and to your point, a lot of a lot of times we see, and specifically in this a transaction, is that owners know where they want to go and they know what they need to do to get to that intended destination. Some of the points of friction are most commonly capital or bandwidth of talent and ability to execute. And, Allied really brought that to the table and to accelerate that growth, all while stabilizing and keeping the core business stable, but continue to add upon that day after day. So I'm not surprised to hear it's going well. I'm glad to hear that you guys continue to work on the platform and continue to develop it, because ultimately, when you win, your partners win. And when your partners win, you win. And with that equal alignment, it really helps people to subscribe to your vision, to subscribe to your thesis, and to trust the direction that you're driving them, which is, like you said, you're ultimately empowering them to do what they have always wanted to do in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't love a win-win? We're always approaching these conversations with a win-win mentality. We're always trying to identify a mutually beneficial path forward for everybody involved, whether it's the leadership team or even other folks within their organization. We want to make sure that everybody is winning. We really like to think that we're building something very special at Allied Roofing Partners. So once we're partnered together, we're really excited about the next step. So we hit the ground running.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, well, I have a question for you, and you have to imagine there's a lot of business owners in a variety of industries, but we're specifically speaking, to roofing and roofing owners here as you build out your platform. But for roofing companies or companies in general, thinking about selling or thinking about an exit to partners or a larger platform in the market, what one advice you would give them as they're making these considerations today?
I'd say I have two pieces of advice. I'd say the first piece of advice is start having conversations uh, earlier than you think you need to. You don't need to be ready to sell, but understanding your options ahead of time can be incredibly valuable, as you can imagine. The best partnerships we see usually start, as I mentioned, months or even years before anything transactional. And part of that is just education.
Yeah.
Private equity has entered the roofing and broader home services space. There's no question about it. And it can feel really intimidating if you haven't been through it before or you haven't had conversations about it yet. So even just having low stakes conversations to understand how partnerships work can really go a long way. And then the second piece of advice is for when you feel more ready to think about a transaction, I'd really encourage owners to think about choosing the right partner. This goes beyond just the price of the transaction, right? It's about what happens next. It's about the future. Not all private equity is created equal. There are a lot of different models that are out there. The goal really should be finding a partner that respects what you built and then can help take it even further through its next stage of growth alongside with you.
I couldn't said it better myself. That's great advice. And what really resonates throughout this conversation with you and I is the best opportunities aren't just built, they're ultimately aligned. And a common theme that we've been speaking to is alignment. And so when you say find the right partner, I think that's certainly speaks to alignment. Find a partner that aligns with you. Find a partner that understands your market, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going. And it was very, very refreshing to see your approach and everyone at Allied on how they took meaningful time to spend that face time together in person, traveling across the country to do that. And that speaks volumes because this is a long-term play. This is a long-term partnership. And there's going to be challenges. There's going to be wins, but the challenges are much easier to overcome when the team is aligned and everyone's focused on that intended destination. And you guys did and are doing exactly that. So I applaud you guys. And we look forward to working with you guys in the future and seeing how the platform continues to grow and to scale.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, we really are building a world-class network of independent contractors. All of our partners not only have a strong business with a strong reputation in their markets, but they all also have a very strong appetite for growth. And that's what we're in the business of doing. We're in the business of helping companies grow far beyond what they might be able to do on their own. It's something that we get very excited about. And I'm glad to see, the success of our company so far. We've been growing very nicely, as you know, over the course of the last maybe 16 months that we've been in business. We have pretty significant growth goals ahead of us. And it's really nice to see that we're already achieving a lot of those goals that we set out to have. So really exciting with everything that's happening over at Allied Roofing Partners. And we absolutely love working with our partners like Meritage to help us with starting those conversations with some contractors that are out there.
Awesome. Well, Azad, thank you again for spending the time with us. We're going to have some show notes on how people could get in contact with you if they're exploring those types of opportunities or exits. Quickly, how best to get a hold of you and the Allied team?
Yeah, give me a call, send me an email, text me, LinkedIn message. It does not matter if you want to get in touch with me. I'm sure there's going to be a way for us to connect, whether it's me or anyone else on the team. We love having these conversations, even if they're premature or a little bit early. That's okay. As I mentioned, a lot of it is just education. We're here to help educate folks in the space and really give them all the information that they might need in order to make an informed decision.
Yeah. Well, great. Again, we'll have those show notes in there, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy and what you guys have built. Looking forward to seeing, like I said, where this goes and working with you guys. And so I also want to speak to the audience that's tuned in and listening to us, because if you're building a business and you want to understand how to position your company for partnerships, for acquisitions, for that eventual exit. And again, as you heard from Azad, that doesn't all have to be in one transaction. That can be in multiple structured exits or exit points along the way, which we liken to, bites of the apples, we call them in the industry, right, Azad? And so if you're looking to do exactly that, we encourage you. I wrote a book last year called Inevitable Exit. In this book, I really distilled down 7 pillars and 7 value drivers that help business owners like you tuned in on how to build your company so you're exit ready. So grab a copy of the book at inevitableexit.com. And I'm excited to announce we're launching a community called Empire Builder Community, where we take the concepts and the teachings of my book into virtual training where you can really accelerate your learning and your understanding of how the private capital markets interact with your company. I'm your host, Brian Franco. This has been another episode of the M&A Guy Podcast. Until I see you next week, keep building your empire.